got something exciting to share with you guys. We have a new Power Automate for Beginners session that I'm going to run you through. This actually came through one of our internal team members who wanted to automate the process of creating certificates when someone has finalized or finished doing one of our courses. Like any business, we've got lots of good systems and some of them need to be developed. And this is an example of this process needing a bit of refinement. So what we thought we would do was work out how we could create a page where when someone completes a course, we could upload a list of email addresses into a SharePoint site as an example. And then everyone that completes the course by the attendance report will be able to send a list of thank yous and certificates saying the course has been completed. So it's very manual at the moment, and we want to make that process a bit better. So let me share with you my screen and we'll get into how we're going to do this using the Power Platform. So we're going to make use of everything we can inside of the Power Platform, and we're going to use our free connectors to do so. So none of this lesson will include a premium connector. Premium connectors could be Dataverse connections or connections to team sites. But for the purpose of this course and for some of you who'd like to play along at home or at work, this is a great introduction on how to begin this process. And it all starts with creating a Microsoft form. So I'll show you the process. We're going to first start with a Microsoft form. So you go to forms.office.com and create a new form. And we're going to call this form something like event registration form, okay? It's a very basic form. We don't need a lot of details. We basically need the choice. Sorry, not a choice. I'll delete that. It's a text, and it's your full name. And we'll do and it's required, obviously. And we'll add another text being your email address. And that's required as well. We can get a bit fancier as well. So at the moment, we've got full name and email address. We could also add a choice. And like this choice could be, for example, course name, okay? And the course name could be course 1, course 2. Basic, simple, anyone can follow along, so that's great. So you can name these however you like. It's just a way of getting data from a form into a SharePoint site so we can begin this process. All right. So let's preview it. Event registration form, full name, email address, and which course, and then you can press submit. And we'll do that stage in a minute. The next thing for us to do is to actually create a SharePoint site, and SharePoint's available to everyone that's inside the Office 365 community. I already have a SharePoint site that's been created for me. It's our test APAC, Microsoft HQ APAC site. So if you have a SharePoint site, please make sure you create an existing communication site, not a team site, because we want to be able to capture the requirements from a Microsoft form into a document library. So if you click on new and document library, we can create a new document library. And we can name it something intelligent. Let's say we'll call it something like course certificates. And we press create. If we show in navigation, it'll just make it easier for us to find it inside this page. So welcome, you've done it. You've done your first site. This is now called course certificate. You can see that at the name at the top of the screen there, course %20 certificate. %20 is a space in internet speak. And we also need to obviously create some fields that we'd like to capture the data from. So at the moment, we've got these default fields that are given to us when we create a SharePoint site. But we want to add some text, and that's going to be full name. Basically what we captured from the forms that we created. The next one was email. And we could probably add another link for the date issued. So I'm going to do that now as well. So I'm going to do a date and time format for this one because it's going to be a date. And we're going to call it date issued. Save. Now, if you remember as well, we had the course selection as well, so we better add that. If you recall here, it's the course name. So we're going to add course name, and that's going to be a choice. Actually, it can just be text because we're not going to select the choice. We're going to have the system automatically feed that. So we'll do another one called course name. And that's it. So we've captured the details from a form will flow into this SharePoint site. That's the beginning of this. The next thing to do is to actually open up a Word document and load up a Word template. I went ahead and created this just because I wanted to accelerate the process a little bit. So I'll just go ahead and open it up. I downloaded it into my downloads file, so it'll be nice and easy to get. I'm opening up now. It is called okay. It's coming up now. Microsoft Power Automate Beginners course. So very simple. I made the page landscape, basic text. You can do what you wish with it. The certificate is presented too, and we've left a blank box here. And in recognition for your attendance in this course, we've left a blank box there and the issue date, and I put a picture in there as well. So we want to actually load this up. So let me just make sure I've got this saved somewhere logical. It's on my desktop. That's why I was not able to find it. I was in my downloads, I thought. Okay, so we can close that. So now that we've got a Word template ready to be uploaded to an environment, we're going to upload that document here. Now I said it was on my desktop. I'll probably see it as a recent file under my desktop. And that's now loaded into a SharePoint site, as you can see here. Now, the next thing to do is to, we open up this Word template. And we actually want to edit it inside the desktop app itself. There's only basic editing we could do on the online version. So we want to open up the app itself from within this SharePoint site. This is because it will get the context of those fields that we just created. So what we're going to do now is in this section here, we would like to have the certificate is presented to. We can insert a text box. And we just do a simple text box and we just lay it out a bit how we want it to look. And we can also make sure we get the formatting as nice the way we'd like to see it as well. Which I'm doing now. Okay. Now, the next thing to do is to another box we're going to need, which is this guy here. Text box. Pop it there. And finally, a date of issue, which will be another text box here. We're going to try and keep it to a smaller file size, frame size, so we keep everything on one page, if possible. A bit of fiddling to get it right, which is expected from doing a template. It's not a WYSIWYG. Well, I suppose it is sort of like a WYSIWYG designer, but working with Word is always a little bit trickier than some other applications like you get nowadays, but that's the way it is. So that's how we want the things to line up, each of our contexts, the file name, the course, and the date of issue. So to replace this context, if we click on Insert and go to Quick Parts, which is next to text box, we can click on Document Library. Now you'll notice things have come across that have come through from the SharePoint site. For example, full name. So we're going to use full name here as our context. And it's going to be within that bounding box. So it's nice and long as well. Same with this one, Quick Parts, Document Library, Document Properties, and that's going to be course name. As you can see there, course name. Now, if you didn't load this in from within SharePoint, you wouldn't have these two fields and you wouldn't have this context. And the last one is a quick part, which is going to be date issued. So that's our 3 boxes. You can go further if you want and format the shape and remove the outline. So there's no outline there. Might look a bit better, just because you don't want it to look so rigid when it produces a PDF. Sorry, outline, no outline. Okay, that's pretty much it. So we can close and save that. So the document's ready for the information to be processed to it. So I've closed that. I can close this as well because really don't need that. And we're pretty much done for the layout. So the next thing we want to do is we can fill in the form. I'll fill in the form first just so you can see what the process looks like. But then we're going to create a flow to follow this. So the full name, well, mine is Benjamin Opit. My email address happens to be opit@pax8.com, not 9. And I did course 1. No, let's do course 2. I changed my mind. So I'm going to submit this form and we're going to then move on to the next section, which is to actually build a Power App flow. So I'm not pressing submit now. I'll do that in a second. So to build a Power Automate flow, we type in flow and we can go to manage your flows. So I'm going to go to make.power.com. I'll just show you from the beginning screen so you can see what it looks like. It's going to sign me in. Oh, I actually want Power Automate flows, not my other Power App flows. So I'll just delete all that. So make.powerautomate.com is the site we're going to go to. And we can create by clicking on create a new flow. So sorry, my flows, new flows, and we're going to create an automated cloud flow. That's the best way to begin this process because your flows will be managed and stored in Microsoft's Azure premises and accessible anywhere in the world. You could also share them out. So we'll call our flow name certificate. Well, let's do participants. Just so we can identify it quite quickly. And we're going to create this when a new response is submitted via the Microsoft form. There are other triggers you could also utilize, and you can look through those as well, but this is a very basic process, and we're going to do it when a new form is submitted. So we press create. So it starts with when a new response is submitted. So the form ID is the form name we just created. So if you look through all of our forms, we are looking for the form we created. If you remember, we called it event registration form, which I'm not really a big fan of that name, but that will have to do. So event registration form, you can type the first few letters of that form. As you can see, we've got a few forms there. So that's the first step, is to actually tell the system what the first step is, and that is to get the information form ID from the event registration form. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a response. So if we click on new step, we want to get the details from that form. So we type in get response details. And we will see the get response details from the Microsoft form here. So if I click on that, we've now told the system we want to get the details out of this form. So it's a natural flow from top down. So if it was called event registration form, thankfully it's at the top. Thank you, Microsoft. And we want to get all of the unique response IDs out of that form. That's it. We've started our first process. The next thing we want to do is actually copy the information from this file into SharePoint, and we're going to also copy it into OneDrive later, and we're going to create another copy of this file so we can end up putting it inside of SharePoint as well. So we're going to SharePoint as well. So we're going to do this process a few times. So the first thing is copy file. So we want to do a new step, and we want to use the copy file function. The copy file function is to copy file from SharePoint And we are going to tell what site we want to copy the information to. I have a list of sites, and it's the one that's called Microsoft APAC HQ. That's our site address. And the file to copy is going to be our template document that we used. So if I click on the show picker box, which will identify a little dropout window where I can actually pick from all of my documents. If I click on show shared documents, I should see my Microsoft. That's got to find the right one. I'll just go back for a second. Shared documents should be under shared documents. I should see my. Now let's double check where I put it. Microsoft Power Automate beginner's course under course certificates. Okay, let's go look for that then. Oh, there it is, course certificates. Apologies, I went to shared documents because I created a file. That's where it is. It's under course certificates, and that's our actual template that we want to copy data to. So we've said what site it's going to and what the file is going to. Now the destination as well is the same destination, Microsoft APAC, but there's got to be a different step here. We need the file to go into a different location. It can't be in the same location. So I would go back into our Microsoft Certificates SharePoint site and create a new folder, and we just call it Certificates. That's where a temporary file will be placed when copying data in and out. So now our destination folder is course certificates and then certificates. So we can click on that, and that punches that details into there. And if we happen to run through this process and it happens again and we see the same file there by some chance, we want to replace that. So we can't accidentally trick the system into waiting for a dialog box or something similar to halt the process. If we see a certificate with the same name, which we should never see, we want to replace it. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we're going to update some file properties. That's our next step. Now, the file properties is how we get information from a file format into a location in SharePoint, so we can get the context of the file that we need. This is a bit like the properties of a file. So we actually want to capture those details as well. So in this example, we want to use update file properties. And you'll see here, update file properties using SharePoint is what we're trying to do here. And that will give us the details we need to drive this trigger. So we're going to update the file properties. Again, the site address is our site address. Hopefully Microsoft has put us at the top. No, it hasn't. So it's this one here, Microsoft HQ APAC. The library name we will do is our library that we called it, which we created, which is called Course Certificates. And our ID is going to be our item IDs. So what you can see here is some dynamic context has popped out here. So you can turn this on and off just so you know the process. And Microsoft has helped shared what it thinks you should be using for the context here of your ID. In this case, we want to get the values from our properties. That's the item ID. That's the reference to the item ID. So the item ID is, in this example, a unique ID, but in my example of the form, it's Ben Opert, my email address, and the course. But the item ID is always unique, which is what we want to grab the context around this as well. And as you can see, all of the information relating that to those fields have come across here. But we want to reference what matches which SharePoint file name. I'll explain that a bit better if I show you. Full name, email address, date issue, course name. They all come from our full name, email address, course name, and we're going to create the date issue. So that's what we need to marry up. So the full name, if we click on full name, we don't need to worry about title. We're just going to go straight to full name. If we scroll down, you see the response details. This is the information that's come from this previous get response details. So now we've got context of what we want. Well, that's the full name, but we want that. Email address, we scroll down again, there's our email address, and the date issue will be the submission time. Now that's a unique timestamp that we could utilize to identify when a form was completed. So we're going to use that for the date issue. Course name, guess what, is course name. And that's it for that context. So let's move on to the next section, which is we're going to get the file context again. So I'm just going to click on new step, and we're going to get file context. This is a little bit similar to the previous step, but let me just type it in and I'll explain it here. So our get file context is now that we've got the data posted from the SharePoint into the SharePoint site, we actually want to get those contents in a format that we can use for the next step. So we want to get the file context, which is our next step. And the address, as you can imagine, is, you guessed it, it's our Microsoft HQ APAC. And in this example, our file identifier is the file ID from the copied file, which if we scroll down here, actually we could just search for the word ID and that will limit us all our IDs. See the copy file function ID? That's what we want from here. We want this ID. Sometimes you get a bit confused here. I definitely did when I was doing this the first time, because I presumed it wanted this list ID. But in this example, we want to get the copy file ID. So it's this one. A bit of trial and error here to get this right. And because I've done this before, I can share with you that's how it works. I'll show you how you can step through some of these processes if you don't get it right as well. So we've now got our file context for the ID. The next action is to actually create a file. Now, these are all not premium connectors or premium experiences. These are all free experiences. So the next thing I want to do is called create file. So I'm going to type create file, and we're going to use this OneDrive for Business connection. Now, with the OneDrive for Business connection, we can get the context of all the details above and actually create a file. And with OneDrive, we can store things in a folder or a subfolder, or for this example, we can just store things in the root folder, which is what I'm going to do next. So my folder path is a /, which is basically means the root of a folder or the highest level of a folder. If you weren't sure what that looks like, you can click on the folder and click on root, and that will automatically put a / in there for you as well. And the file name we want to store this is, let's use the file context from the previous copy file and update file properties, is, I'm just going to scroll down to the very bottom here, full name, which can be from our SharePoint site, which is get the response details, this location here, so the full name, and we're going to do an underscore. Oops, that's not an underscore. And I'll also do a course name. So this is when we save the file, it's going to be my name, the course name, another underscore, and we're also going to do a certificate date. To do that, we can do another simple process of adding a timestamp. Now, a timestamp in computer speak is in UTC file format, Universal Time Coordinate, but it's normally that really long elongated number, and we can help articulate that a bit better by using this context. So if we go to expressions, we can use these expressions to refine our data set or make changes to it, or change it from a string to a variable, or any other context we'd like to use. In this example, I want to use this. I could type this out, but I want to show you where it is. See under date and type, it's called the UTC now. Now, the UTC now is a timestamp, which would be a long string, pretty hard to read, but you can get the data out of it. But what we can do is we can actually put we can put the letter D in parentheses, single quotes, and that will give us a date format, so that when we save this file, it will come out in that file. So UTC day format, and then a docx. I made a big mistake testing this out. I forgot to do that step. So when it went to try and convert this file into a format, it kind of fell in a heap, because it said, well, I don't know what file format this is. Spent a lot of time getting that wrong. So don't forget that step, very important. Our next step is to, we want to convert a file. So, last thing I've got to do is the file context. So the file context here is the get file context, file context. There's a lot of get file context here, but basically we want to get the contents of the file into the file context. That's the process of creating a file. Microsoft could make that a bit more easy to understand or explain, but just be aware that when you are looking for file context, you want the file context. If I go to next step, our next step is to actually convert the file. So I'm going to type convert. And I'm going to convert this file. It's in the preview state at the moment, which means it's a preview feature. It could disappear. It's been around for a little bit, so it's probably going to come out of preview at some stage, but be aware. So this flow may fail in the future, and it may be because of this preview being converted into a V2 as an example. So convert file, we want to convert the file into the ID, which is the unique identifier. Now it's the unique identifier from the file, from the create file above. So we know it's the unique ID that's been created here. And the target type is PDF. We could also make it GLB, HTML, or JPEG. A certificate should probably be in PDF. That kind of makes a bit of sense. And as you can see, we're building out this slowly, so we're almost there. The next thing is we want to create a file in SharePoint. So we've created a file in OneDrive. Now we want to create this file in SharePoint. So I'm going to type in create file. And it's a create file in SharePoint. So similar. The address is, where is our address? Microsoft APAC HQ. Our folder path is the name of our folder path under course certificates. And if I'm not mistaken, we had a subfolder. So let me just do that again. Course certificates. And the file name is file name. Convert the file. This is the standard context that the create file gives us. So file name is file name and file content is file content. All right, next step. So we've got the file, we've converted it into a SharePoint site. We now want to update the file properties of this created file so that it knows where it belongs inside the context of SharePoint. And to do that, we do what's something called update file properties. And that's a SharePoint update file properties. And we are literally going to go through the same process here. We're going to tell the flow to update the Microsoft HQ APAC site. The library name is our course certificate. Our ID is the item ID, which is this guy here. And again, our full name is from down the bottom here. Our full name from our update file properties. No, sorry, a bit further down. You could actually just type full name and get all the list of full names, but we can do that when we're a bit more advanced. So get the response from full name, get the response from email. I'll just scroll to the very bottom because I know where it is now. And our date issue is submission time. I think we mentioned that before. So if we go down here to submission time, and course name is obviously our course name. And that's that step done. Next is we want to delete some stuff after we've done. Now you can miss this step if you want to keep the files. I like to clean up as we go because I could be doing this 1,000 times over the next 10 years. So I'm going to do a new step, which is delete file. So if I go to delete file, we actually want to delete file from the OneDrive. So delete file from OneDrive. And we want to delete the ID. Make sure we select the right delete file from the right ID, not from the SharePoint site, but from the actual cloud ID, the create file ID. And we also want to delete the file from our SharePoint. And it's going to want to know from what site. We're getting used to this. It's from our Microsoft HQ APAC, and the file identifier is the ID from the SharePoint site. With me? Okay, so that's pretty much the process. We've created a file, we've created a document, we've saved the document, and we've deleted the link for that document in SharePoint and OneDrive. What do we do with the file that's created? That's our next step. So our next step is to send an email. So new step, send email. Now, on the time of recording this, send email is on version 3. I think there's a preview coming out on version 2. I think there's a preview coming out with version 3 with a bit more functionality. But for version 2, this is our process. So email 2 is going to be, in relation to our context, our email address. Now, let me see if I can find it. Actually, and what I might do is actually type email address this time, because we know now what to look for. There's our email address. And our subject is going to be, what's the subject of this email that's going to be sent to the person? Your certificate is attached. Something like that. You can change the message however you like. Now we can actually get into writing the content or the body of the email. So we say, dear, let's go to the very bottom here, full name, and a comma, couple of enters. Thank you for attending our, go to the bottom, find our course name. Please find attached your certificate of attendance, and we look forward in seeing you next time. All the best, your MSP, or whatever you may be called. So yeah, that's pretty much the process. So we've received the full name, the course name, and we're going to now attach the details. So if I click on that little arrow, we can send on behalf of someone else if we're so given permissions to do so. For this demonstration, I'm going to send from my own name, so I'm not going to worry about that. But if you had an email address like, for example, course@yourdomain.com, you could set the send on behalf as flag so that this flow can be using that email address rather than yours. Because every time this flow runs, it'll have my email address that it's coming from. We can kind of trick that a little bit by having a different reply to address down here. For example, do not reply at pax8.com. I hate do not replies, because if you're sending me something, I should be able to easily send something back to you. Is the world that we're in. So I'm going to leave that as a demonstration example. But what we need to do is actually attach the documents to this form. So we want to attach the file name and the context. Remember, we see up before the file name and the context. That's where we grab this now. So we go to file name down the bottom here. Can't see it there. I might have to type it if I can't find it. I might have to type it in. File name. There it is. See, under the convert file function up here, we've got the file name here. And then on this one here, it's the file content, which I'll type in this search dynamic content as well. Okay, so that's pretty much the process. We can change the sensitivity. We can BCC someone else if you like. You can add CCs if you'd like to do that as well. But that's pretty much it. And we can press save. Okay, so we haven't got any data inside of our SharePoint site yet, so we should go and do that. So let's put my name in here. Sorry, we're going to preview it, and my name is Benjamin Opit. Actually, I'll do another name. Let's do surname Pax, Benjamin Pax. There you go. And my email address is the email address I want to get this email on. Just want to show you what that looks like when it comes to a certificate. And we did course 2. And then I press submit. So now the form has been submitted. Data is going to sit inside our SharePoint site with this context. And then we can actually test out our flows. You can see that there are no certificates in here, but we have this first form being completed with all of the context around that information. And that's where this data falls into. So let's see what happens when we save our flow. Sorry, we're back into our flow, and we can now test our flow. If we click on test, we can test our flow manually, which is probably the process we want to do, and we press test. And then with the luck of the demo gods, everything works the first time, and we will get an email with the attached PDF of our completed Word document. So that's running now. First time is always a little bit longer to run. And we're going to tell it how it's going to, when it's going to trigger, and it's going to be triggered when we complete a form submission. So as soon as that finishes, we'll show you that process. Please insert hold music here. Hold music here. Okay, let's just have a quick look here and see why our flow didn't run. It did fail. So let's go and edit our flow and have a quick look why it didn't flow, why it didn't run. We should have had an error. It didn't actually error out. But let's go to our flow checker. There's no errors. Let's go do another test manually when a new submission has been completed. So I'm going to do this again. And I am going to, I'll probably kick off a manual flow by entering another response. So this time I'm going to do Benjamin Pax 9 as a differentiator. Same email address. And I'm going to do course 1 this time and press submit. Then when we go back to our flow, we should see this actually kick into gear. Yeah, it did. Okay, cool. So the flow was running, but I hadn't actually triggered an event, which I thought I had done. Welcome to demo land. So it's going through this process as it's looking for response, it's collecting the response, it's copying the file, it's updating the file context, it's converting the file, it's now creating a file in OneDrive for Business. It's converting that file into PDF format from Word. It's now creating the file update and updating the properties that relating to that file, deleting them both, and then giving us an error. So I have made a mistake here. And I think that's because this last process here on the delete file doesn't exist. So I can press edit and go back and just double check on why we had that error on that last flow. Maybe I didn't select the right subfolder that was located. Let's check. I'm not hugely worried. Oh, I did say body ID there for a second. I don't think it's a big deal. If we go to our Microsoft form sites, you can see that it has created a couple of PDF examples here. As you can see, that's the first one that didn't run for some reason, but our second one did. And what should happen is if it all goes to plan, I'll actually get a PDF email. I'm just checking my emails. I don't have it, so I'll have to check that. But let's have a look at what this PDF looks like. And there we go. That's our second flow that came through, as you can see, and it's for the course number and the date issued. So a small error that I have to go back and check on why the send mail didn't work. It should have worked. I have tested this before, but I think generally speaking, a very good introductory demo on how this process does work. If you would like to see what it looks like, I don't think it's that big a deal, but I actually do have one that I prepared earlier. Isn't that funny? Which is something like this. I'll just bring it across here. This is an event certificate for Ben Opert. This looks a bit different because I was doing some testing, but dear Ben, thank you for participating in the course. Please find attached certificate. A slightly different layout and format. I was doing some testing beforehand, but that's what that certificate looks as well. So I will have a play around with my flow to work out why it didn't work, but I hope that is a very good introduction on how to use Power Automate using the free connectors or out-of-the-box connectors. And I'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much.